This is big breaking news. Chaos is now breaking out across multiple cities inside the United States, and officials are now calling for the National Guard to be brought in. We've seen officials say they don't want the National Guard, but now we are seeing officials saying they do want the National Guard in multiple different cities and states. So let's get into all the details here. You guys can see it says Indiana Attorney General calls for National Guard deployment to Indianapolis after violent weekend. All right, that was just posted and a couple days ago. And you can also see here, this is happening in Chicago as well too, right? Federal law enforcement officers are being targeted intentionally by these gangs and by these criminal groups, and they're putting out hits in Chicago, all right? And Republicans and officials are calling for the National Guard to be deployed even more heavily there. And also Portland, right? Trump is trying to deploy the National Guard there, but he keeps getting blocked, all right? Another judge has just ruled that Trump cannot deploy the Guard there, and a state of emergency has actually been declared in a Portland area over the cooperation with ICE and DHS from police, right? So just chaos across the country right now. All right, let's get into more details of what exactly is going on. We also have the West Virginia governor here. He is saying that he's deploying the National Guard to food banks, right? Because the shutdown isn't official yet. It's pretty much over, but it's going to take weeks for things to really get back to normal, all right? Quote, normal. All right, but let's read more about this really quick. You can see here, it says Indiana Attorney General calls for National Guard deployment to Indianapolis over violent weekend, right? He said here, another violent weekend in our state's capital. It's shameful that this is a regular occurrence, and even more shameful that the leadership here refuses to do anything about it. Whose ears deserve to feel safe and secure in their communities, but instead are stuck living in and I'll read the rest of that in a second, but you can see here, this is what he is responding to. 14 people shot, 4 stabbed in 72 hours over one weekend. All right, absolutely insane. But this is what he was saying. He was saying, but instead are stuck living in a never-ending crisis with no end in sight. We need law and order restored. President Trump should absolutely add Indianapolis to his list of cities to send the National Guard to. It would be welcomed to get this violence under control. All right, so that's what the Attorney General is calling for, all right? And it's after this crazy weekend. 14 people shot, 4 people stabbed. Indianapolis is one of these cities too. It kind of flies under the radar, but it's high crime too. It's experiencing a lot of these same issues that these bigger cities like Chicago and Los Angeles, Memphis, that the Guard has already been deployed to. They're experiencing a lot of the same exact problems, all right? So AG Todd Rokita is calling for this, all right? Let's listen to this really quick too of what's going on in Chicago. And there are Republican reps and people online are saying that the National Guard needs to be heavily deployed to Chicago. Let's listen to this.
Federal agents here in the Chicago area are on alert tonight, following word they are being targeted by leaders of a major street gang. This comes as Border Patrol agents are attacked by an individual shooter. Senior correspondent Mike Tobin has the story here in Chicago tonight.
Chicago police get caught in the unrest in the Little Village neighborhood after DHS says a man drove up in a Jeep and fired shots at Border Patrol agents. Now, after shell casings and video were collected from the scene, multiple agencies tracked the shooter and a suspect is in custody.
An illegal alien that has a past felony conviction for firearms. This suspect's in custody, and they're pursuing leads based on this suspect. It appears he was in the Jeep, and he was armed.
DHS released pictures of federal vehicles damaged after at least 4 were rammed this weekend. Others were pelted with bricks and cans of paint. And Border Patrol agents were alerted that the street gang, Latin Kings, directed their membership to shoot on sight. Federal agents operating as part of Operation Midway Blitz.
A shoot on sight threat for federal law enforcement, that's extremely concerning to us. We actually put that out on an intelligence bulletin to all federal law enforcement, especially Border Patrol.
Federal agents and their top brass say the rhetoric from elected officials in Illinois, calling agents everything from Nazis to barbarians, triggers violence and lawlessness.
We were protesting peacefully when, for no reason, the Gestapo let go of a flash ban.
Leaders in Washington anticipate more violence as people in the neighborhoods are encouraged to form mobs, record with their phones, and make noise each time agents make arrests.
It's really disgusting in the fact that they keep trying to turn the tables on ICE with this crazy rhetoric that makes us out for being the bad guys for doing a law enforcement mission.
Now, last week, U.S. District Judge Sarah Ellis issued a...
All right, so you heard that there. Hits are going out on federal law enforcement. Right, pretty wild, pretty scary that they're that brazen in Chicago, right? So people are calling for the National Guard to be deployed there. I'm calling for it, right? And I think they will be deployed even more heavily in the future, right? I think 2026, I think 2025 was kind of getting things ready, and I think 2026 we're going to see a very an even more expanded ICE, DHS, National Guard, federal operation in these big cities. I think it's going to be even more in people's faces, more troops on the street, more federal law enforcement, and more arrests as well. So I think that's what's they're building. I was just reading about how they're building these massive detention centers that can hold, tens of thousands of people in each one. So they're ramping up. I think this is just the start, and I think the response, I think we're going to see a lot more people, double down and become even more chaotic, right? Let's look at some of this stuff coming out of Portland here. All right, you can see, I thought this was kind of an interesting clip. This is going around. This is from Katie Davis Court. Let's watch this clip really quick. You can see this guy. He obviously doesn't like Trump. He doesn't like what's going on. And he picked up a pepper ball that was on the ground that ICE and law enforcement, looks like he's kind of regretting it at this point. But he picked up a pepper ball and put it in his mouth, all right, and was rubbing it all in his mouth. Just come on, man. And I mean, you can see the guy's shirt, all right. Pretty vulgar. And Portland has declared a state of emergency over their police helping DHS and ICE, and they're probing the police. Absolutely insane. So the police officers can't help federal law enforcement, right? And this is why part of the reason they keep getting attacked and boxed in certain areas is because the state police and the local police won't do anything in certain areas, right? They won't help them, and they won't enforce the laws, all right? So federal officers really can only enforce federal laws, and most driving laws and things like that are state laws, okay? It's like a 10th Amendment issue here. So they really don't have jurisdiction to just arrest. They have to be breaking a federal law for them to arrest someone, which people do, but that's kind of the basis here. The local law enforcement and the state police, they need to be the ones stepping in and helping them, right? But Portland, Washington County is doing the complete opposite. They've declared a state of emergency. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous to declare an emergency over this, and now you're going to get your own police officers in trouble for working with the federal government, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. All right, so I don't think this is going to help their case here with President Trump. And I think they're going to push to get National Guard deployed there, right? They keep going back and forth where they get approved and then they get blocked. It's happened a couple times, and they're waiting on the full approval. And Trump can always implement the Insurrection Act as well too, right? That's kind of a thing that he can do that will trump any type of court order, is this Insurrection Act that has been upheld many times in history, and he would most likely meet the requirements for it. All right, so I think 2026 is going to be even crazier. I think the chaos we're seeing is going to be even bigger, especially like summer 2026, because we're having the midterms. It's going to be summer. That's when these big protests really happen. Because, right now it's winter. The days are short. It's kind of cold. Only, the most committed and some people maybe getting paid are the ones out there. But during summer, they can probably get a big thing going, get people really worked up, and have big protests and big potential riots. All right, remember Minneapolis, buildings burning down, mostly peaceful protesting. You remember all this stuff? I'm worried we're gonna see that again, and that was under Trump. All right, that was Trump. I'm worried we're gonna see that again. All right, whatever it is, I don't know what the spark is gonna be exactly, but some situation they're gonna exploit. Maybe federal law enforcement officer, maybe they really hurt someone on accident or something along these lines. Something escalates, somebody gets really hurt, and that turns into a big thing. I don't know what's gonna spark it, but I really believe next year is gonna be a big year for the federal government, and also for people like agitating, protesting, potential riots as well too. And it's a midterm election year as well too, so it's going to be wild next year, and these big cities are going to be even crazier. All right, I think this is kind of the downtime right now that we're seeing. It's November, it's cold, it's kind of rainy, holidays are coming up. This is the downtime, right? Next year is going to be when this stuff's in full effect. All right, so they're declaring states of emergency. They're trying to get their own police officers in trouble. Kind of wild. And this is going to spread, right, to more states. So look out for this and just be careful, because certain areas you won't be protected. Okay, the police here are actively saying they're going to stand down. And we've seen what happened. We've seen people get attacked here, like Nick Sorter. He was assaulted and pushed to the ground and attacked by multiple people because he put a flag out that was on fire, an American flag. He took someone's flag that they were burning and tried to put it out. So then a bunch of people attacked him, and then he got charged with disorderly conduct, I believe, or something along those lines. So, and he was the one attacked and literally pushed into the bushes and everything, pushed to the ground. So you're not going to be protected, okay, if you're in these areas. The police are actively standing down, right? So if you are in these areas, be very careful, be very cautious, keep your head on a swivel. You're not going to be, the police are not going to protect you and keep you safe. Sadly, I hate to say that, I don't want to say that, but these certain areas, that's what they're telling you. They're saying, hey, we're not going to work with federal law enforcement, we're not going to protect them, and in turn, they're not going to protect you, most likely. All right, so let me know what you guys think down below. Hope you guys are staying safe, staying prepared, staying stocked up, and staying ready. All right, we're not out of this. Hopefully the government reopens soon. But remember a couple weeks ago when all these people were like threatening to like riot and steal food and things like that because the benefits were turned off, right? They didn't go away, okay? And if something like this ever happens again, if we're ever in a real scenario, okay, like a war breaks out, a economic collapse, some type of, cyber attack, wipes out the grid, something along these lines, okay, something like really big, internet down, internet outages, banking system resets, okay, something along those lines. If we ever see something like that, it's going to be absolute chaos and anarchy in certain regions, okay? Some areas will come together, some areas people will come together and be stronger than ever and be resilient, but some areas it's going to be people at their worst, okay? It's going to be Mad Max situation. So just be prepared for that. Know where you're at, know where you are, and be very careful in these major cities. So thank you guys. I hope you have big blessings for your life and your family, and I hope you have a big old blessed day.